The first defense of his UFC title. Looking to take his belt, challenger John the Magician Dodson. Plus, Chuck Liddell protege Glover Teixeira is looking to make tomorrow night Rampage Jackson's swan song. And title implications in the lightweight division when Donald Cerrone battles Anthony Pettis. This is the UFC weigh-in on Fuel TV, and it starts right now.
The main event spotlight shines on the two best flyweights in the world, UFC champion Demetrious Johnson and the #1 contender John Dodson. On Saturday night, it shall be done. Only one leaves Chicago with the UFC hardware. It is the first title defense for DJ, who has no plans of relinquishing the title, but Dodson is determined to make it a short reign for the first ever 125-pound champion. And with that, we welcome you live inside the legendary Chicago Theater. John Anik alongside Chael Sonnen and UFC Bantamweight champion of the world, Dominic Cruz. Guys, once again, a tremendous lineup. It is live and free on Fox. We will get to that main event shortly. But off the top, Rampage Jackson here facing Glover Teixeira. Really an intriguing matchup and what's an important fight here at 205 pounds.
What I love about Rampage right now is how angry he is. And an angry Rampage historically has always been a very effective and dangerous Rampage. Look, John, in this sport, every 3 or 4 years, a guy comes along and without the actual experience, based on reputation and expectation, rises to the top, and that's where Glover's at. But that adds pressure.
No doubt about it, pressure and a 17-fight winning streak on the line for Glover Teixeira. Now, Dominic, perhaps the most anticipated fight on the card, top to bottom, so long in the making. Anthony Pettis and Donald Cerrone finally get their mitts on each other here tomorrow.
Oh, I can't be more excited for a fight like this. I mean, you look at the matchup, and they match up perfectly everywhere, on the ground, in the wrestling realm, in the stand-up realm. The only thing in the stand-up realm is one's real tricky and the other one's real fundamentally sound. Power-based Muay Thai striking of Cerrone versus the slick Showtime style of Pettis. I'm super excited for this fight, and the fans should be too.
I'm just glad I don't have to pick a winner. We know you guys at some point will have to go on the record. Now, let's look at our flyweight title fight. Demetrious Johnson is on the throne at present, enters the fight here as a nearly 3-1 favorite. Dominic, I guess for those who haven't seen a lot of the flyweights, Demetrious Johnson really a great representative of what this division brings to the UFC.
Extremely great representative. He's a well-rounded fighter, great takedown ability, great footwork. His striking is bar none some of the best in the division, but his timing is what's impeccable. That with his striking, with his takedowns, with everything that he does, he puts it all into it and he never gets tired.
And Chael Sonnen, the challenger Dodson, undefeated since making the jump into the UFC.
And I'll tell you what's so intimidating about him is this is a guy that can use footwork, but a real rarity in this division is he also has knockout power. You can see on this highlight clip, it's knockdown after knockdown, finish after finish. This guy is flat scary with the power he's got in his hands. So let me remind you, this is a 2-time state champion wrestler. Doesn't use a lot of his wrestling except for defense. Never been taken down in the octagon.
This could be John Dodson's coming out party here on Fox Saturday night. All right, for more now on our championship main event, we send it to the 4th member of our team, Ariel Helwani. He is braving the frigid Chicago air outside. AH.
Guys, I hope you are enjoying the cozy confines of the Chicago Theater because it is brutally cold outside here today. It is 14 degrees Fahrenheit with the wind chill. And you know, when I saw John Dodson at the hotel on Wednesday, I said hello to him. All he said back to me was, "It's really cold outside." Of course, that being the understatement of the century. I asked him, you know, does this weather actually affect you as you're cutting weight down to 125? And he said yes. It actually took him a day or so to get used to this weather. He needs to be warm. He needs to sweat properly. He blasted the heat in his room to make it feel like a sauna. He said after a day or so, he was okay. Now, as for the champion, Demetrious Johnson, he shrugged this off. He says this feels like back home in Washington. This feels like Toronto in September when he fought there. And I can tell you, I was in Seattle last month. I was in Toronto in September. This feels nothing like those places, but I guess what they say is true. Come hell, high water, freezing cold weather, Mighty Mouse is always on his way. For now, I will go sit on a heater and pour some coffee on my head. I am freezing, John. Back to you.
Well, I have never been happier to be a Nevada resident than I am right now. Thank you, Ariel. Plenty more from him, as well as our analysts during the live weigh-in. They'll be chiming in with some interesting nuggets on our Fox UFC Saturday competitors. All right, time now. The moment you've been waiting for. It is our Twitter poll question of the night. Which fight are you most looking forward to tomorrow night? To vote, use the following hashtags: Johnson-Dodson for the Flyweight Championship, Rampage Glover for the co-main event, or Pettis Cerrone. Results, as always, later in the program. All right, now it is almost time for the fighters to hit the scale. The inconvenient truth: Johnson, Dodson, Rampage, and the rest of the Fox UFC Saturday stars are ready to get this over with in the Windy City. Joe Rogan on the call when we return. It's the UFC on Fuel TV.
The UFC weigh-in on Fuel TV is brought to you by Harley-Davidson, united by independence.
Main event, correct? Okay. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the weigh-ins for Fox. Ariadne and Brittany, professional hot chicks. Dana White, without him, none of this would be possible. Joe Silva, best matchmaker on the planet Earth. Lorenzo Fertitta, ladies and gentlemen. Burt Watson, babysitter to the stars. We got a hell of a card for you, ladies and gentlemen, and we're kicking it off in the welterweight division. Simeon Thorson versus David Mitchell. First up on the scale, David Dowdy Mitchell.
171.
171. And his opponent, Simeon Thorson. of the night, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Simeon Thoresen and David Mitchell. Next up, live on FX in the middleweight division, Rafael Natal and Shawn Spencer. Scale, Shawn Spencer. 186 for Black Magic. And his opponent, Rafael Sapao Natal. Spencer and Rafael Natal, ladies and gentlemen. Next up in the heavyweight division, Mike Russell versus Shawn Jordan. $251 for Mr. Jordan. And his opponent, Chicago's own Mike Russell.
Mike Russell is the hometown hero here from the Windy City. He is best known for his come-from-behind win over Todd Duffy, and power like that commands respect from any opponent.
256. Shawn Jordan and Mike Russell, ladies and gentlemen. Next up in the light heavyweight division, Ryan Bader versus Vladimir Matyushenko.
Vladimir Matyushenko is a former #1 contender. The Belarusian fought Tito Ortiz for the light heavyweight championship of the world. This guy's experience and power keeps him relevant today. $205 for the janitor. And his opponent, winner of the Ultimate Fighter, Ryan Darth Bader.
Ryan Bader says his first love was always football. In fact, back in his high school senior season in 2000, he was named the Nevada Defensive Player of the Year, and his big claim to fame that year was holding future NFL star running back Steven Jackson to just -2 yards in a playoff game.
$205 for Mr. Bader. Vladimir Matyushenko and Ryan Bader, ladies and gentlemen. Next up in the welterweight division, Mike Stump versus Pascal Klaus. the scale, Hyoki. 146. And his opponent, the Carpenter, Guida.
Clay Guida is a man who brings 16 fights in the UFC. He's got outstanding submission defense, outstanding takedowns, and he uses long combinations to put his opponents up against the cage, and he uses ground and pound and to keep a grimy pace. Those are the things you got to watch for Clay Guida.
Exhausted just watching that. 147 for Mr. Guida. Hold on a second, folks. He's not done. He's teasing us. He makes weight, ladies and gentlemen. Clay Guida. That is an outstanding featherweight fight, ladies and gentlemen. Hyoki and Clay Guida. Next up in the lightweight division, TJ Grant versus Matt Wyman.
Matt Wyman, the artist formerly known as Handsome Matt Wyman, has asked that we drop the handsome from his moniker. So fans, whatever you do not find him on Twitter right now and say to him in capital letters, handsome.
First up on the scale, Matt Wyman. 156. And his opponent, TJ Grant.
Hockey star Sidney Crosby isn't the only famous athlete to hail from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. TJ Grant also comes from that corner of the world, and he's doing pretty well for himself these days. He's won 3 in a row as a lightweight, and that has him tied for the second longest winning streak in the 155 division behind the champ, Vincent Henderson.
$155 for Mr. Grant. That's an outstanding fight, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Wyman and TJ Grant. Let them know. Next up, the main card, live on Fox. We kick things off in the featherweight division. Koch versus Ricardo Lamas. Up on the scale, Ricardo Lamas, 145. And his opponent, Koch.
September 17th, 2011. That's the last time we saw Eric Koch inside the octagon. And since then, he's lost out on 2 title shots. One due to a Jose Aldo injury, the other due to his own knee injury. Now he's just worried about getting back inside the cage and getting his career back on track.
For Mr. Koch. A great way to kick off the Fox card, folks. Eric Koch and Ricardo Lamas. Next up, we got a candidate for the fight of the night, ladies and gentlemen. In the lightweight division, Anthony Showtime Pettis versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Donald Cerrone is a man from the WEC who brings 5 Fight of the Night awards from that organization. On top of that, he's got an outstanding Muay Thai power-based striking with great fundamentals, and his guard is bar none some of the best at the 155-pound division.
Scale, Cowboy Cerrone, 155. And his opponent, the former WEC lightweight champion, Anthony Showtime Pettis.
Anthony Pettis is outstanding. What can you say that he hasn't said for himself? Showtime has the knockout kick of the year. He dropped our own champion Benson Henderson in the closing bout of the WEC. The uncrowned and former champion of that organization looks to be the #1 contender in his fight with Donald Cerrone.
155 for Showtime. Two of the very best lightweights on earth, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Cerrone and Anthony Pettis. Next up, the co-main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division, Rampage Jackson versus Glover Teixeira. First up on the scale, Glover Teixeira. 206. And his opponent, the former UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, Quinton Rampage Jackson.
After 7 years and 11 fights inside the octagon, Quinton Jackson says tomorrow night's fight will be his last in the UFC. But on Thursday, UFC President Dana White wouldn't commit to that idea, perhaps holding out hope that Rampage will howl in the UFC once again in the future.
Teixeira, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna get crazy tomorrow night. Now let us take a closer look at the two men involved in the main event of the evening.
Everyone says Demetrious Johnson is the fastest guy in the octagon.
And there's some good shots by Demetrious. Look at the speed of that. Oh my! First ever UFC flyweight champion.
Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson versus John Dodson for the UFC flyweight title might be the fastest fight you ever see inside the octagon.
My best performance would be anybody in the flyweight division on any day. I don't care if the belt's on the line or not. I'm gonna go in there and win.
In Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson, you have perhaps the most technical fighter in the division, if not the UFC, who moves as fast as any human being on earth.
I'm the biggest DJ fan there is. I've been a fan of his for so long that I wanted to beat him up.
In John Dodson, you have an unbelievably explosive young man, and his one-punch knockout power is really unprecedented for the flyweight division.
I get a chance to punch him in the face and have him punch me in the face and then make it an all-out war that people would want to see.
I think he has the impression that I'm going to stand there in front of him and let him hit me. It's not going to happen.
When I bring my best performance, I'm going to have my hand raised at the end of the night. DJ brings his best performance, I'm still going to have my hand raised at the end of the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the challenger, Shawn the Magician Dodson.
John Dodson seemingly always has a massive smile on his face, and he says he has had to overcome so much throughout his life growing up in a single mother home that he now appreciates everything that he has now and then some.
In his mouth, the challenger, ladies and gentlemen, John Dodson. And his opponent, the UFC flyweight champion of the world, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Demetrious Johnson is a man I know very well and have fought. He's got great footwork and uses that footwork to set up counters and angles. At the same time, he's got the best timing and takedown ability in the division, and he uses his footwork not only for takedowns and striking, but to make sure that he keeps his opponent offset the entire fight.
The UFC flyweight championship of the world, ladies and gentlemen, John Dodson and Demetrious Johnson. That is it for the weigh-ins, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching at home on Fuel TV, don't change the channel. There's plenty more coverage to come with John Anik, Chael Sonnen, Dominic Cruz, and Ariel Helwani. So let's send it over to the guys with more. John.
All right, Joe, thank